Frozen Tundra Football League.
Hello and welcome to all of my friends and fellow FTFLers and anyone who is up at 3 a.m. in the morning scrolling through YouTube videos like a zombie, and you have found us, the longest running weekly episodic fantasy football update show out there. That's right, this is the FTFL Weekly Update, and I am the host of this show and owner of the first place in the North, Hulkamaniacs. That's right, I said it with a straight face. Take it to the bank. Argue all you want. I'm in first. And for now, you can't take that away from me. Woo! We are 5 weeks into this odyssey that is the 2021 season. And I'm not the only one who is in first place in the North, because it's not just me. It's not me and Jeff. It's not me, Jeff, and Andy. It's not me, Jeff, Andy, and John. It is all 5 of us. Me, Jeff, Andy, John, and Swart. All at 2 and 3. 5 men in a tub, rub a dub. Holy cow. I've never seen it where all 5 teams are tied after 5 weeks. It's basically like we're starting the season over. Not even just tied, but under 500. Now, before the salt gets all hardy har, it isn't as if you're lighting the world on fire with point totals. And let's be clear, it's not as if you're having a lot of points scored against you. Now, this week is another North versus South. If I'm the South, you better be kneeling down next to your bed at night and saying a cute little prayer to the stars above that you do not get outplayed by the North, because trust me, you'll hear it about it on this show. As far as those 2 and 3 starts, Markser came real close on Monday night. Andy can't just pick the right quarterback. Is it Dak? Is it Lamar? Had he picked Lamar, Monday night would have sealed the deal for him. And of course, John can't thank Jeff enough for that trade that propelled him to a victory and, of course, a share of first place. 9 teams this week. 9. And if you're doing math in Browerville, that's 1 short of the rest of all the teams in the league scored 80-plus points. 1 team scored a new all-time low. Adam Saltmarsh, the woes continue. His running backs, which we documented last week on the show, combined for 7 points, which is a quarter of the season total. Now, that's 5 weeks, so that's better than average. However, still quite paltry. Now, in an effort to bolster the running backs on his roster, he traded for one Clyde Edwards-Helaire, much maligned, seemingly on the cusp of a breakout. But first, the broken. That's right, Salty traded for a running back who was injured, not just traded, but a first-round pick. Now, a couple things about this trade. One, Eric did and has gone on record saying he kind of accepted it as a joke. He didn't think people would vote it through. Now, I will say that when it came for my turn to vote, I looked at it and go, man, I'm not entirely sure this is all that fair. But 2 things came to my mind. 2 things. One, the week prior, or 2 weeks prior, I had, okay to trade with Jeff and John, where Jeff traded for a player who was on IR. Who am I to start splitting hairs? If the player's injured and they want to be a part of the trade, then I guess I voted once on it, so I was going to go again. And secondly, One of the owners in this trade, a couple years back, said the following: I believe that any trade that is posted for more than 24 hours and just left there should automatically be counted. Well, Adam Saltmarsh, it appears you finally got what you asked for. But boy, not if you're asking for wins this season in the FTFL. That is the third straight loss. Your team continues to outdo itself. And, oh, by the way, every other team in the history of the FTFL, 32.5 points this week. My goodness gracious. Now, he wasn't the only team trying to upgrade his roster. Matt and Sid got involved in a little swapping, if you will, of players. Come on, folks, of players. Matt gets Matt Stafford and an 8th round pick. I guess Stafford just wasn't doing it for Sid anymore, so he said, see you later, bye. There's plenty of others just like you here in the Plastic City of Angels. Sid, he gets Deontay Johnson in a 6th round pick, so some pick swapping, some player swapping. Sid gets a receiver and rid of one of his, not one, not two, not three, but 4 quarterbacks that were on his roster for a brief period of time. And oh, by the way, last thing before we get to the games, the quarterback buzzsaw returned in full this week. I took it square in the old fuzzy coin purse with Justin Herbert and the Cleveland defense, who I'm going to roast later on this show. 46 points for Justin Herbert, but he wasn't alone. Lamar Jackson, who could have gotten Andy that 3rd season-tying win from last year had he played him, but he didn't. 44 points for Lamar. And Josh Allen for Swart on a Sunday night where he came roaring back and got his 2nd win on the season. 40 points for Josh Allen. 3 quarterbacks, buzzsaw patrol. And let's get to the games. First one, here we go. Mana, 4-time Lucky Pants, belt stealing champ. Mana taking on Cramerica Great Again. Of course, these teams have met 3 times in the Fantasy Bowl. Jeff holding the edge 2-1. But edged he was this week, 107.5 to 106.5. Now, heading into the Monday night game, Jeff needed a Herculean performance from his newly acquired Jonathan Taylor, and he got just that, but it wasn't enough. If you're Sid, Austin Eckler continues to defy all wet paper sack odds with his play, 26.5 points. Dawson Knox. Who dis? Dawson Knox, 17.5 points. He is on a tear. More on that individual later. And Antonio Gibson, 17 points. The Bears defense, Matthew Stafford, both with a dozen. Marvin Jones, half point. Justin Tucker, 3 points. Didn't matter. Mark Andrews on the bench with 29.5. Sid has 2 very, very good tight ends. I know most people are lucky enough to say they have 1 halfway decent tight end. Our good friend Sid has 2 rock solid tight ends. If you're Markser, maybe a tighter end would have helped. Now, Jonathan Taylor arrived via trade from John last week, and he promptly went full Herschel Walker in his first game for his brand new team. Now, that's right. If you remember, the Vikings, the vaunted Herschel Walker trade, and one of the main reasons that I today am a Packers fan, Herschel Walker showed up and returned a kick for like 30 to 35 yards, took the next play, a handoff from scrimmage, went 50 yards, had his shoe fall off running down the field, and Viking fans were going completely bananas. And that was about all Herschel Walker did for his career with the Vikings. And the Dallas Cowboys went on to win 3 Super Bowl titles. Now, Markser has 4 Frozen Tundra Football League titles. So, again, who are we to doubt him? And I dug a little further into this trade. Jonathan Taylor, yeah, he knocked it out of the park with 27.5 points this week. Last year was his rookie season. Over the first 12 weeks of his rookie season, Jonathan Taylor had 77 points. Since then, over the last 10 weeks, last season and this one combined, Jonathan Taylor has 166 points. That's more than twice the first 12. Maybe Jeff's not on something. Maybe he's on to something, just not on to a win. Now, Jeff's Chubb prediction saw a huge raise this week. 20.5 points. Nick Chubb is back up and back at it. Jalen Hurts, 18. Jeff's new quarterback, who again he is playing this week over Jameis, who had 36 on the bench last week and would have won Jeff the game. Maybe Jeff deserves the decent. Maybe he doesn't. Robert Woods, 16 points, highest point total of the season. Kenny Galladay got Jeff a big whopping 0. When you lose by 1.0 is a big stinky number. Granted, he got hurt. He was averaging just over 6 points. So again, his average would have gotten Jeff the victory. Alas, it is a loss. Sid gets the win. Next up, Hulkamaniacs coming in at 2-2, taking on, that's right, first place in the North. Hulkamaniacs coming in at 2-2, taking on Team Linkowitz at 1-3. And even despite my loss, I am still in first. 103.5 for John, 95 for me. I already said it, John. 46 points from Justin Herbert. G-bus. And, wouldn't it have been nice had a few more of those balls been going to Keenan Allen? Good Lord. He is still on the field. Throw the ball to Keenan Allen. No, we got to throw the ball to Mike Williams. Again, Cleveland defense, you're on deck. Get ready. DeAndre Swift, 15 points. Very quietly is the number 8 running back in the entire league. DeAndre Hopkins also acquired in a trade 13. Harrison Butker 11 kicked John's way to victory on Sunday night. James Conner 8.5. That's right. The 3 new players John acquired in the trade with Jeff. 67.5 of his 103.5 points. The 3 players he sent packing 63.5. It's just 1 week, but I think we should probably get a chart going. I know the moment I said that, I can hear you screaming, Jeff, but where's the chart for Dalvin and Jefferson? Where's that chart? Listen, I'm not a math teacher. I can't handle all those numbers all over the place. I'll see what I can do. What I can do this week was not enough. Kamara, nice week, 22.5 points. DK Metcalf, 20.5 on Thursday night, and I was feeling good after that performance. But sometimes 20.5 from one receiver is just not enough. Aaron Rodgers, 18. Cordero, savior of my Stevenson Patterson, 9.5. Noah Fant, who I'm expecting big things out of, didn't do it this week, 1.5 point. And then there was my brand new defense. One of the top defenses in the NFL. Held the kick-ass offense to 7 points. Maybe, just maybe, I should have paid a little closer attention to who their opponent was the previous week. But Cleveland, for crying out loud, would it kill you to have played just a little defense? Just a smidge. Justin Herbert just kept throwing the ball, and you stood there watching as if you were a spectator in the stands. Criminy, we could have picked 11 players to grab a jersey at halftime, and they would have performed better. Cleveland, 442 times in NFL history, a team has scored 40-plus points and had 0 turnovers. And 442 times that team has won until Sunday. Because your defense is a train wreck of just grotesque, mutilated awfulness. What a complete crap fest that was. 442-1, and you are the one giant turd in that equation for crying out loud, Cleveland. What a hole your team is. We're done. I lost. I'm 2-3 now. John moves to 2-3. And last game here, before we get to know a little bit more about Dawson Knox, the Architect coming in at 3-1, taking on the Pack Attack at 1-3. Now remember, Eric, most points scored in the league, most points against, can't catch a break until he did. 112 for Eric, 80 for Matt on an off week. Antonio Brown just blew it up, 28.5 points. Derrick Henry, 26 points. Greg Zerline, 15 points. And you saw it at the beginning of the show. We took a moment of silence to honor and reflect upon that for the next several weeks, for the first time in the history of this show, you will not hear me utter the phrase, stupid face, Russell Wilson. Ruptured tendon in his finger, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. It's going to be a long time, and I'm going to miss saying it. Thank God for Kyler Murray. Get to say his names a little bit later on. Wilson had 8 points before he got hurt. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in his swan song for the Pack Attack. Half point, promptly got hurt. Eric traded him away for a first-round pick, and then in the cold-blooded GM move of the year, before Salty could get to it, maybe Salty didn't try, I'd like to think he did, Eric picked up Darrell Williams on waivers. The man was down, Eric, and then you curb stomped his nutsack. Cold-blooded. If you're mad, you take the loss. You're to 3-2. Devontae had a huge game, 23.5 points. Ezekiel Elliott's great season continues with 19. James Robinson brought a whole hot tub full of women in points at 14.5. Matt had 5 players at 4 and under, including one Derek Carr, who saw quite possibly the most tumultuous and worst week in the NFL. Not only did he play terrible, his coach is gone, the coach that he loved. He's got to feel at a bit of a crossroads, and not just in his career, but this season too. The first 3 weeks of the season, he had 60 points. He was averaging 20 a game, if my Browerville math is correct. Over the last 2 weeks, 18 points. 9-point average. It's an 11-point swing. Matt, you were riding high to 3-1. Things have changed a bit. Can you bring the nose of this plane up with Matthew Stafford? Only time will tell. Now, next up, a segment we started last year, of course, after John's infamous Venmo moment. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I give you Who Dis?
Who dis?
All right, so for the first time this year, we're going to dive deep on a player, and who better than Dawson Knox? Who dis? He has come seemingly out of the woodwork to be one of the most dominant tight ends in the league. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Now, Dawson Knox was born on November 14th in 1996 in Brentwood, Tennessee. Now, as a high schooler, he played wide receiver and quarterback. He only played one game his senior year because of an ankle injury. So he's a tight end now. He played wide receiver and quarterback. He missed almost his entire senior year. Yet, he ended up at Ole Miss. Not as a highly touted recruit, but as a walk-on fullback. He walked on at an SEC school. So that right there tells me there definitely was some talent hidden there in Dawson Knox. As a fullback at Ole Miss, he had 39 receptions for 605 yards. I don't know who the running backs were. Maybe I should have looked that up and done a little bit more research. That ain't numbers that's turning anyone's head, or so one would think. Now, he forewent his senior season and was still drafted in the 3rd round of the 2019 draft by the Buffalo Bills, pick 96 overall. I'm not entirely sure if they wanted him to be a fullback. I don't know if they wanted him to be a tight end. And I'm not entirely sure they knew if they even wanted him after his first 2 seasons. In 2019, 28 catches, 388 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty pedestrian. 40 fantasy points if you're looking for that number too. In 2020, 24 catches, 288 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He went backwards in receptions and yards, caught 1 more touchdown. He did miss 5 games. So maybe things were starting to build. Only 38 fantasy points in 2020. Already in 2021, he is at 55 fantasy points, 18 catches, 261 yards, and 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns for a receiver. And I will say tight ends and receivers too. They are often touchdown dependent. I don't think this is a rate he can keep up at all. However, if he does, good Lord, he's going to become a household name real damn fast. And so that is Who Dis?
Who dis?
All right, up next, Who Dis? This is the Mixing Cocktails and Liquid Schwartz. Mixing Cocktails 2-2, taking on the Liquid Schwartz at 1-3. This was another one of the close games. Schwartz, big comeback for him this week. You know, he did trade away some players. He was, being kind of pushed around a little bit. He too, by the way, in case you missed the Open, is in first place in the North Division, and he will stay there with a 109.5 victory to Andy's 102.5. One of the buzzsaws, Josh Allen, 40 points. Alexander Madison. You can tell I'm not a Vikings fan because, let's be clear, who would ever want to be one? 19.5 points for him. Najee Harris is continuing to stay above average and is one of the better running backs in the NFL as a rookie, 15 for him. Damian Williams and Younghoe Koo both chipped in 11. Adam Thielen, 3 points. There's a number of players that came out of the gates hot in the first 3 weeks. I already talked about one of them, Derek Carr. We're going to talk about a couple more here in a moment. 44.5 points over his first 3 weeks, 6.5 over his last 2. Adam Thielen has all but disappeared, and so has the kick-ass Minnesota Vikings offense. Talent abounds, but points aren't anywhere to be found unless you're looking on Swart's bench, where one Mike Williams was 34. He said, you know what? I did 25.5 a couple weeks ago. I think I could do better, and better he did. Didn't matter. Didn't need him. He still got the win. If you're Andy, you played Dak Prescott, 28 points. Dude, I'd kill for 28 points for my quarterback situation right now. It has been not as great as I hope. But you left Lamar Jackson on the bench and he got 44. You lost by 7. You don't have to be really great at math to know that, well, you would have won. Mike Evans, 21 points. Debo Samuel with 11.5. Kelsey with 11. And Kelsey's kind of somewhat just been there. Hasn't been a superstar. Hasn't had those big games. He's just kind of slow and steady. But I'm sure not the guy Andy was hoping for when he took him in the first round, first overall. Andy, on his, in his starting lineup, Tyler Lockett, 48 points over the first 2 weeks. The last 3 weeks, 10.5 points. Tyler Lockett was in your lineup, 4.5. CeeDee Lamb was on your bench, 16. That was another 7+ point difference that would have gotten you the win had you put him in. You have lost 3 in a row since your 2-0 start. Will you this week find that coveted third victory? Time will tell. And of course, that is why we play the games. And the last game of the week, we talked about this earlier, the radioactive. And if you are a science nerd like me, you understand that radioactive isotopes have half-lives. I'm kind of thinking that Adam Saltmarsh's fantasy team has reached that point and gone way beyond. It has turned into a 5-alarm fire, call in all the help you got. This thing has gone south, and it has gone south in a very, very bad way. Taking on Peter, who's picking on the Levensvingi and the Valhalla Vandals. 99 points for Peter. We already told you 32.5 points for Adam Saltmarsh. If you're Peter, Jamar Chase, 23 points. Oh, by the way, that rookie is the 6th best wide receiver in the league. Patrick Mahomes, 20 points. Of course, the number 1 quarterback in the league. Kareem Hunt, who was not overly affected by Jeff's Chubb production. He was able to get in there and get him some too. 18.5 points. Darrell Henderson, 12.5, who really is establishing himself as a very competent running back out in LA. Tyreek Hill, 7.5 points. Tyreek Hill is boom or he is bust. His numbers go as following. Week 1, 27.5. Week 2, 1.5. Week 3, 6.5. Week 4, 39.5. Week 5, 7.5. You either get it all or you get nada from Tyreek Hill. It didn't matter, of course, this week because, well, Peter was playing against Salty. On Peter's bench, Tom Brady, 42 points. Yet another buzzsaw that I forgot to mention. I apologize to Tom, the greatest of all time. He's a number 2 quarterback. That's right. Peter has number 1 and Peter has number 2 quarterbacks. If you're Salty, you barely even have numbers. Kyler Stupidface Jr. Murray with 10 points. Everyone else had 5 or lower. Miles Sanders, 4.5. Marlon Mack, 2.5. The starting running backs combined for 7. John had the former low of 38.5. If you're keeping track, Salty at 32.5 points. Had Josh Allen beat him this week, had Lamar Jackson played, he would have beat you this week. Justin Herbert beat you himself this week. Jameis Winston beat you by himself this week. You got to find something, some sort of sacrifice. I don't know what it is. And I once on this show sacrificed a horse. If you don't remember, go back. I think it was season 2, maybe season 3. All right, I've been talking long enough. Let's hit the stud, the dud, and the decent and get next week's games, and then we'll get up out of here. Stud of the week, this was easy. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, both buzzsaw performance in a starting role, 46 and 40 respectively. Dud of the week, Cleveland's defense. You sack of flaming monkey crap. Jeebus, 3 points for your vaunted defense. Derek Carr, 4. Tyler Lockett, 4.5. They're hot starts. They're slow last couple of weeks. That's why they're the duds. They're letting their team down when their teams need them the most. The decent, Salty, 32.5 points. And you're going to get votes come time for voting because that was brutal. Your running back situation, all of it right now is just not great. Swart, the reason I'd give you the decent this week, and I know you won, and so there really isn't any reason I should, but I know it grinds your gears. So you left Mike Williams on the bench. When are you going to learn to play Mike Williams? Maybe next week it'll sting you. But for this week, that's right, buddy. First place. Woo! All right, week 6, another North versus South week. I said it at the start of the show, and here we go. The Monkeys desperately looking to get on track at 2-3, taking on Mana, 4-time Lucky Pants, belt stealing champ Mana in yet another log cabin pizza bowl. Overall, the edge in this series goes to Salty at 12, 11, and 1. All right, after that, it's a Pack Attack 2-3 taking on Linkowitz at 2-3. Can they both get 2 in a row? Now, you win one, that's great. You win a second one, that's 2 in a row. You win a third, well, ladies and gentlemen, they call that a streak. You got to get to 2 before we can get there. That series, 12-11 in favor of Linkowitz. Isn't this amazing? You start to listen to these numbers, how close they are when you play someone from the other division, how because of luck, things just kind of seem to even out, right? The Architect at 3-2, taking on Mixing Cocktails at 2-3. That one is 6-5 advantage Andy. Another 1 game difference. Who knew? Who knew we could do this? Next up, Kramerica 4-1 taking on Liquid Schwartz at 2-3. Now that one a little more distorted, but still not bad. I'm losing my voice. I'm getting so upset about what's to come. 9-6-1 advantage Sid. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, the Hulkamaniacs, first place in the FTFL North at 2-3, taking on for the first time ever the Valhalla Vandals. Now, remember, Peter took over for Ryan and his saggy, sweat-crusted pizza leavings in the crevices of those dangly, nasty titties and balls. Who, by the way, in his career against me was 20-3. How in the blue hell are Jeff and Salty 12-11-1? Eric and John 12-11. Andy and Matt 6-5. Sid and Swart 9. How in the blue hell does one person lose to the same team 20 times? But you know what? Ryan Deesom's not around anymore because Ryan Deesom is a quitter. That's right, Deesom. You're a damn quitter. And Peter, after this week, you're going to be thinking about quitting too, buddy, because the Hulkamaniacs are going to run wild on you. You're pretty threatened now, aren't you? You're like, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, God. All right, big week, fun week. A lot of energy flowing through me. Hope you had it flowing through you. You can feel it just coming out of the TV screens or whatever you're watching on. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Until then, peace! Yeah, I'm in first. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I hear you clapping. Yeah, you almost seems like you're mocking me. Yes, you said you would help get me to first place again, and then beyond. And you know what? You did. And so next week is week 7. We'll arrange a meeting. You'll get your first installment. If I make the playoffs, of course, that's when the second installment comes. And then the big bonus is, well, we talked about that. Right. Well, 1 week at a time. Now, we're 5 weeks in. You called me. Am I going to get a name here at some point? I was pretty skeptical at first, but boy, I put all of my trust in you. You made some big just a name. Yes, I think I deserve a name. He's hung up. What the hell?